Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CMU Sport Management Podcast. This is episode 7. I am your host, Kyle Sandel, and today I am joined by a CMU alumni, the current director of public engagement with Circuit of the Americas, Carter McCullen. How are you doing today, Carter?
Good, Kyle. Thanks for having me. Sorry for the background noise. We've got a little track rental going, so it'll be kind of in and out with some background. But
Yeah, it's kind
good.
of some entertaining background sound there. Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely different. So the first thing I just want to ask you right off of rip is today, obviously, I'm here in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. It is a freezing cold day today. We've got some mix of snow and rain. How is the weather down in Texas right now, man?
Yeah, this is the time of year I would say where it's the most ideal to live here. It's kind of like a September morning in Michigan where it's like 50 to 60 degrees in the morning and then it gets up to 70 or 80. So it's kind of that perfect temperature after dealing with about 5 or 6 months of 100-degree weather, and then we'll have a couple months of cold and then right back to the hot. So yeah, no, it's good down here in Austin right now for sure.
Yeah. So in the summertime, have you gotten adjusted to that type of crazy heat, or is it tough?
I don't think you can get adjusted to it truly.
Right.
This was year number 3 for me dealing with this summer, and it's a lot different, especially growing up in Michigan and getting used to the winter and acclimated to that. I will say I've gotten pretty soft in terms of going home and stuff now. Whenever if it's below 60 or 70 degrees, I have a sweatshirt on just because of this. But yeah, no, it's definitely taking some getting used to, and still kind of getting used to it because it's just nothing like back home.
Yeah, I feel like if you're not from down south, it's really hard to get, especially being from Michigan too. So okay, so let's hop into the first question I usually like to ask everyone is, before you even started college at CMU, when you were back in high school or maybe even in between, what was the inspiration behind choosing to go to Central Michigan to enter the sport management program?
Yeah, absolutely. So my inspiration was really my dad, and I think my brother Jared, who graduated a year and a half ago from Central as well, or excuse me, last year from Central as well. Now is with Kentucky women's basketball. As we just say, our dad, we grew up in a basketball gym all the time. We'd help out our, high school athletic director with every sporting event, and then we'd sit on our dad's bench growing up. And the goal for both of us was to be college basketball coaches one day, and that was kind of the path we both went down. Jared kind of obviously is still running that, but I'm kind of was the bad end of COVID. Kind of got messed up there, but things ended up working out well, especially with my sport management degree from Central. And so, it was definitely not how I planned it, but ended up working out pretty well still.
Gotcha. So obviously, so were you a 2020 graduate?
I was a spring of 2020 graduate. Yep.
Okay, so like right when COVID was basically currently going down. How was that whole
Yep.
process like?
Yeah, it was definitely different. I mean, I still remember kind of the last little bit. I worked for the women's basketball team my whole time there. And, we were in Cleveland for the MAC tournament when all of the COVID stuff started. And then the first cases were reported in California and Ohio. And then it was, we played a game and then we unfortunately lost, but we were probably going to get in that large bid. And then we kind of drove the bus home and, the coaches were like, hey, we don't really know what's, we're probably going to need a week or two off and then we'll get right back into it. And then sure enough, I didn't really see anybody for a couple of months and just kind of ended up being stuck in Mount Pleasant working at Bucks Run Golf Course. But it was definitely an interesting time for sure. And bad way to end my time in Mount Pleasant, but everything happens for a reason, and luckily have worked out well for me. So
Yeah, totally. So when you were at CMU, you just talked about how you worked in the women's basketball team when you were there. I just had Ava Denton on the last episode, and she's been with the women's basketball team. Talk me through that process and those experiences and maybe other things you got at CMU kind of helped you lead to knowing what you wanted to do.
yeah, absolutely. For me, the whole time it was always I wanted to coach basketball, and I was going to do whatever it took to advance myself in that career, and kind of was able to do that while I was at Central, and just always was trying to be the first person in the office, last person kind of leaving, and kind of experiences like that where some kids in sport management don't quite get as much experience, and so for me, all it did was prepare me for when I came down here to COTA in the middle of the pandemic. There wasn't much staff. I was coming into a staff that was 160 people, but it was down to about 30. So,
Wow.
having to do jobs that normally my position technically isn't doing, right? But just being willing to do it because you want to work in sports, and, at the end of the day, you need a paycheck, right? To be able to keep kind of moving on and doing what you love. And so, yeah, no, I would just say kind of the hard work and the nice thing with Central Michigan is, it being a smaller school, you don't have as much of the support in terms of the budget and all those different kind of things. And so it allowed me to kind of learn some new things, be challenged in a way, and that, just wanted to be a good multitasker. And that was kind of one of the skills I learned from Central just with the small budget was, I was doing operations, I was doing travel, I was doing food, and I was doing the video work, rebounding for the girls, all the different kind of stuff. So, you just kind of had to be willing to do whatever it was. And that kind of worked out well for me and kind of my growth here at Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, it's something that we've kind of talked about a few episodes on this podcast, but I think the best part about the athletic program at Central is just filled with students, like there's so much opportunity for students to be involved in whatever department that you kind of want to try. And if you're in communications, let's say, and if you realize that's not my thing, you can go over to operations. Like they're always willing to try and lead you into that right spot. So it sounds like there was a lot of the same for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was fortunate in that I kind of had a connection to be able to work with the team, but, it was definitely something that I'm forever grateful for. And some of the best times of my life were, working with the team and traveling all over the country, representing the Chippewas. So,
Of course. Yeah. So as far as just the sport management program, your time in college, obviously, like you said, ended a little bit weird with COVID and everything, but pre-COVID times, what would you say was your favorite part about the sport management program at your time at Central, or some of the favorite things?
yeah, no, I think one of the great things is that Central has a bunch of great professors. I know I was kind of able to talk about it the other week when trying to help Central get the extension for the sport management program and all the approvals and all the things that you need to have that department. But, you have such great professors and they all have worked in different aspects of sports, which is nice. You have, Williams, who was at CMU, right, working in athletics. And then you have the type of Ballou who was doing stuff, in the sports commission world. Adler and much different things. Same thing with all the others. But I believe, it provides kind of that different aspect of there's so many different ways you can work in sports, right? Everybody thinks, oh, you just want to work for your local pro team or college, whatever it may be. But, there's the sports commission route or whatever it may be. I would say some of my favorite times though was Dr. Ballou's class. I hate math, but Dr. Ballou made that class fun for a semester for me. I think doing some of the stuff with the Pistons and things of that nature, and the sales class was obviously a really great experience. The project working, I can't remember whose class it was in, but the project where you work with one of the university's marketing departments and coming up with a plan.
Yep.
Our year
Adler's
we worked
class, yep.
that, okay, Adler. So we worked with the University of Georgia that year and presenting them a plan and coming up with all of that. But I would just say that the ability of CMU to, as you talked about, the athletic department kind of relies on a lot of us in the sport management program because they need us as much as we need the experience, right? But also just the ability of just kind of working through it and getting that experience and learning from other people as well. And, having Chippewas come back and speak to the classes, whatever it may be, seeing, okay, this is somebody that was in my seat, just a few years ago. They're working in sports. They're doing what I want to do. I think that's a really cool aspect to it.
I totally agree with everything that you had to say there. So obviously, as we can hear in the background, the racing going on. So I just kind of want to ask, because I'm someone who's not very educated in the motorsports world, the racing world. Like, what is it like working behind the scenes in the motorsports, the motorsports scene, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll tell you what, I never saw myself here. I'll tell you that
Okay,
much.
okay.
I never saw myself here. I used to watch NASCAR and stuff growing up, maybe, but go to a local raceway maybe once or twice in my childhood, but never thought I would work here, especially at Circuit of the Americas. So it's completely different than all the others. In terms of just Formula One, like right now, throughout the year, we have about 340 days of the year where the track is considered hot, which means we have a track rental of some sort. It could be a Mercedes driving school, it could be a local driving academy, whatever it is. It could be motorcycles or it could be cars as well.
Okay.
The racetrack is designed for MotoGP, so that's why Formula One likes it, because it's safe for their guys. There's a lot of runoff and things of that nature, because obviously if you fall off in a motorcycle, you're falling on your back
Exactly.
and sliding. So, yeah, no, we've got NASCAR, MotoGP, Formula One. Formula One, we do two Super Bowls in a weekend, basically. We did 432,000 people this last year. It was, 3 weeks ago now. Over $1 billion of impact on the state of Texas. We're the United States Grand Prix. We're the only track. Obviously, now there's Vegas and Miami, but we're the only purpose-built track
Okay.
for Formula One in the United States, which is pretty cool. On top of, we have an amphitheater. We soon have an amusement park coming, car condos, I mean, basically we're considered just kind of a destination, and that's what Circuit of Americas wants to be. And it's only 11 years old, so kind of the future is very bright. And so I was very lucky of when I was able to join COTA staff. But no, it's I tell a lot of people, like, it really doesn't do it justice until you come here and you really see how big, how many different things we do here. It's really quite cool what we're able to accomplish with our team here.
So you said that, this isn't exactly where you saw yourself ending up. What was the process like then of ending up with COTA?
Yeah, this kind of goes back to Adler and all the professors. They'll tell you, it's not about who you know, but who knows you. And so when I lost my position with the women's basketball program, I lost the paid aspect. And obviously, COVID, you needed a paycheck. It was even tougher on life. Luckily, my buddy, who also was a sport management guy, but from the University of Ohio, he was down here with the Dell Match Play PGA Tour tournament. He was an intern. His boss had just left and came to COTA. And they ended up going and meeting up a couple weeks later after they had separated. And he was like, "Hey, I've got a buddy who, did a sports management degree at Central Michigan. He just wants to work in sports. He's just looking for something," and was lucky enough to get that opportunity and
Awesome.
kind of worked my way up through there. So I was very lucky, I would say.
That sounds like a great opportunity that came around for you.
Yeah.
So what does a day-to-day like process look like for you at your current job?
Yeah, so it's kind of switching. My role before was major race operations. So we've got a team of 3 or 4 of us. It's kind of changed throughout the couple of years of a bunch of good guys that work hard and work well together. And basically, our whole job is planning the major events, all the temporary structures. So your grandstands, your hospitalities, restrooms, fence. An aspect we're kind of connected with our security and transportation team as well. So kind of just planning for major events. My new position with public engagement kind of falls on our marketing and comms and PR team. Yeah, so now public engagement, director of public engagement. So my role is kind of working on a lot of our future projects, things of that nature, local city relationships, local community relationships, working with some of our nonprofit groups, some of our givebacks that we do, as well as working on state relationships and all those different kind of important factors for us. And really, my whole job is just kind of selling the dream of COTA and the things that we have coming. A lot of times people just don't really realize what we're doing out here. And so kind of being able to, sell the story of just, how cool the place this is, what we do. Formula One, you see it, about 65% of the crowd comes from outside the state of Texas, and probably about 40 to 50% is international. So when you're walking through the Grand Plaza and you see different people of different ethnicities and languages from all over the world, right? And you're like, would that be here in Austin, Texas without this racetrack?
Right.
Probably not, right?
That's got to be a
So
pretty surreal moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool to be a part of that. And our team's awesome here. We just got a bunch of great people that work well together.
So what do you think makes, I mean, obviously just because it's a different type of sport and everything, but compared to working in primary sports like basketball, football, baseball, volleyball, all of that kind of stuff, like how would you say that motorsports and racing is in its own unique path, like from the behind the scenes standpoint?
Yeah, I would say one, it's louder. Um, our offices are right here in our paddock building, so it's always super loud with the cars and stuff. But I would say the coolest thing I think with motorsports is a lot of people don't realize how extremely talented athletes they are,
Uh-huh.
right? I always kind of say, like, they're like fighter jet pilots on the ground. MotoGP riders are insane. Their elbows and knees are touching the ground when they're making turns at a high speed. Formula One drivers are just absolutely pushing, one of the most elite cars in the world to an absolute limit. They have G forces of 5, 6 Gs, sometimes even 7, right, on just turns. And you
Yeah.
think when you're driving your car and you have maybe one, right, and you feel like you're about to fall out, like they're doing that on a consistent basis. But I would just say a lot of times, they just don't get the credit that's due for how extremely talented they are, because they're, like Formula One, it's the 20 best drivers in the whole world, behind a wheel. So I would say definitely that, just that, as well as kind of just the different people that you meet throughout it. They're from all over the world, right? Formula One's really growing, obviously, since Drive to Survive
Right.
on Netflix, but you've got people coming from all over the world, right? There's only one American driver. So I would say that's another cool part to it, as well as kind of just the different people involved in it.
So does does your guys' facility host anything other than motorsports, or is it strictly just like, because you talk through the different types of, race car, motorcycle, and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we have a permanent concert amphitheater that does about 30 to 35 shows a
Oh,
year.
okay.
So you've got that side of the business, which is separate from the motorsports stuff. During F1 weekend, we also build what's called the Super Stage, and we have two huge concerts. It was Taylor Swift years ago. This past or last year was Green Day, and there's been Billy Joel. This past year was who was it? The Killers, and then you
Okay.
had Queen and Adam Lambert. But we've got this month coming up. We have our Peppermint Parkway, which is our Christmas light show. So that's a really cool community event where people are able to drive out. They're able to drive the racetrack in their own cars at a slower speed, obviously.
Yeah.
But the whole area is lit up. It's a great Christmas community event. We do Cars and Coffee, which is a huge car show. Bike night, where you're able to come out in your own bicycle and bike around the track. So it's 3.41 miles. So a lot of like the intense cyclists, they come out and do that when we're
Right.
doing it every Tuesday, because you have 3.41 miles of no cars, nothing to worry about there. You're able to go up and down hills, turns, all the different kind of
Sounds
things.
like
So
Dr. Blue's dream.
it is. I know. I keep trying to get Dr. Blue down here for it, and he's like, I know I need to because he's got family down here now. But
Right.
yeah, it's definitely something I've told Blue. I'm like, you got to get down here and do it. So
That he just continues to talk about cycling all day long. He's got a true passion for it. It's
oh yeah,
pretty awesome. So you've mentioned F1 obviously, and as a guy who doesn't even follow motorsports very much, I'm tuned in with F1 just because it is such a popular not new, but it's a rising, So
yep.
what is it like working the F1 Grand Prix and that F1 weekend? Like, how is it, like a very intense operation?
Yeah, it's insanity, really, is the best way to describe it. You have just people from all over the world attending, and it's just a jam-packed weekend with entertainment, right? That's kind of the thing we pride ourselves on, is it's not just what's on the racetrack, right? Like when the track's cold and you're able to go to a village to get a different kind of food or a different kind of alcoholic beverage or just drink. You can go get a tattoo while you're here. You can go listen to a DJ. We've got a little DJ area.
Okay.
Shaq was out here DJing for the past couple of years. So we do a lot on the fan engagement, and just like fan entertainment side to make it more than a race. That way, if dad or mom is a big motorsports fan, maybe the kids are like, I don't want to come, but they're able to come out here and have as great of a time as
Right.
mom and dad are, that, or vice versa, whatever it may be, to kind of make it entertaining for all the guests and different kind of things of that nature. So
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's like you said, it's one of the most popular sporting events in the entire world. And I think that's really cool that, like you said, 40 to 50% or something like that are all international fans. Like, that's got to
yep.
be crazy to just see people coming from all parts of the world.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about this earlier, obviously with the weather change, but what was it like just, going from central Michigan, which is, a very small part of of America basically, and going to Austin, Texas without basically any stops in between?
Yeah, no, it was kind of weird. At the time, me and my girlfriend, now my wife, I was kind of like one of those where I got offered it, and I was like, "Hey, I'm moving to Austin, Texas, and you can come or you don't have to if you don't want to." And she's like, "I'm coming. There's nothing really else to do." And we loaded up a U-Haul like a week later. We drove straight here. And Austin, Texas is just beyond our racetrack. It's just turned into like a hub of people from about 20 to 35 years old. All the tech companies are moving here. You've got Tesla, you've got Amazon, Google, Dell. I mean, the list goes, Oracle, the list goes on and on and on. So it's a very vibrant young city. It's a good time. The weather's awesome for the most part. I'd say probably midsummer, I kind of get sick and tired of it.
Right.
But no, it definitely was a huge culture change. I was fortunate enough and honestly, everybody says they work with great people, but I was able to meet some of my best friends, that I've worked with here, and just people that you can kind of count on and trust on, because we're really in the trenches with each other basically every single day, because this
Right.
property's got something going on. And so you really get to know and love and have, just admire those people and kind of always be able to trust and fall back on them. So fortunate to have kind of a good team and been able to meet some good friends, and fortunate also to have another Chippewa join me here for a couple of years as well, and he just
Oh,
left.
that's
But
awesome.
yeah, no, it was good to. It's a cool spot to end up. There's worse places to be than Austin, Texas.
Yeah, it definitely sounds that way. So the last thing I have for you is a question that I usually end it off with everyone. But to current students in the sport management program that maybe are looking for a path because they're not really sure what sport they want to work in, or maybe what part of sports they want to work in, like what would you say is your biggest piece of advice to current students?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I go around to UT and A&M and Texas State, all these different schools. We're trying to recruit sport management students to come, be event operations or interns, whatever it may be. And people will harp on it, but experience, experience, experience. At the end of the day, if we're looking at resumes and you're a college student, we get it, you're busy, with classes and all that stuff, but still at the end of the day, if you really want to work in professional sports, collegiate sports, whatever it may be, you've got to get in the trenches. You've got to, you don't have to do it for 3 4 or all 4 years like I did, right, or some other people do, but as long as you're showing that interest of wanting to work in sports, you've been in the marketing department or you've been in the operations side, you're working with Justin and team setting up McGurk and Kelly Shorts, whatever it may be. It's important to get that experience because at the end of the day, if you're able to come in with, even if it's a year of experience, it's more than a lot of other people that may be applying that, got a random business degree, but they're like, oh, I want to work in sports.
Right.
It's just that added bonus of to why you have your degree and why you've specialized in just sports management and just being able to work hard as well. I would say that's the other key part is at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that that still come up to me and they're like, your job's really awesome. It's like, yeah, I'm very fortunate. There's a lot of people that would work just as hard to have your position, and so you've always got to
Right.
remember that whenever it sounds cliche, but when you want to take it kind of easier, have an off day, whatever it may be, there's people chopping at the bits to have your job as well because you're able to enjoy your job and working it still. And so I would say working hard and just getting experience and being proud to be a Chippewa. I know I am down here. Obviously, last night was disappointing, but
It definitely
um,
is. Yes.
putting your stamp on the world, I know is the saying, and fire up chips. But just being proud of the sport management program. There's only so many schools in the country that have it, and the fact that Central Michigan has it is obviously pretty cool. And it says something to the university for on that end about our program is that we've got people everywhere and all walks of life for sports, and so that's another cool aspect.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people give the same type of advice, but with the experience. But I think that is key to people that are listening. Like the fact that basically every person talks about getting experience. It's very clearly important if people in the industry are
Yeah,
mentioning it.
sure.
So the only question I have for you, this is a very non-related question to the sport management side of things, but
Yep.
have you personally been able to like drive or ride the course at all?
Yeah, no, that's a perk of the job. It's not as frequent as you would imagine
Right.
because, like I kind of talked about, it's 340 days out of the year, just about our track rental is sold or it's got one of the major races is setting up, whatever it may be. But yeah, no, I've been fortunate enough to drive in a couple of different kind of cars on track. I've never had the courage to get on or ride in a motorcycle
Yeah.
because sometimes we've had motorcycle ride-alongs and I'm like, I don't know if I could do that.
I'm not a motorcycle guy either.
Yeah, no, I prefer at least I've got something around me in the car. But yeah, no, I've been fortunate enough to drive in a couple of different kind of cars. I've also been fortunate enough to ride along with a couple of coworkers who have been a part of the old driving experience we had. So they really know,
That's awesome.
I like to think I'm a good driver, but they really know how to drive around this place. And so definitely a cool perk about this job is being able to do that because not many people can say that.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Well, that's basically all I had for you. I don't know if you have anything else that feels like needs to be brought up at all, but
Yeah, no, just I would say for the students, it's just important to again get that experience and be willing to do it. I know obviously everybody wants to go out and party, go to dollar doubles or whatever it is now at O'Kelly's and stuff like that, but you've got to be willing to kind of balance it between if you want to work in sports one day, it's a big key aspect to it. And I think any alumni will tell you that too. Like you mentioned, it's important to have that experience and work hard and just be proud to be a Chippewa too. I think it's another thing sometimes people they're like, you're really proud to be a Chippewa. And I'm like, there's something in the water in Mount Pleasant. I think
exactly.
we've got a little extra pride. And so, yeah, just that would kind of be my notes.
Awesome. Well, and hopefully the football team finishes up the season well and gets into a bowl game. That's the goal at this point. So
Just need one more. Just need one more.
exactly. Well, I think we can do it. Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Carter, for joining me on this week's episode. And thank you guys for listening to episode 7 of the CMU Sport Management Podcast.